him. DNA, so ancient, so powerful, it rewrote the story of the entire human race. He was a quiet black man from South Carolina. No fame, no riches, just blood that held a secret the world wasn't ready for. When scientists tested his Y-chromosome, they were shocked. It didn't match any known lineage. It didn't fit any European profile. In fact, it was older than anything they had ever seen. His DNA proved something terrifying to those in power, that every human alive today descended from a variation of a black genetic blueprint. And just like that, he became a threat, not for what he did, but for what he was. This is the story they tried to erase. But today, we're bringing it back, because the truth was in his blood, and somebody didn't want you to know it. What if I told you that a black man's DNA, discovered by accident, completely shattered that narrative? His name was Albert Perry, and when scientists tested his Y-chromosome, they found something so ancient, so impossible, it sent shockwaves through the genetic community. His DNA didn't match any other group on Earth. Not Native American, not European, not even other African lineages. It was older, hundreds of thousands of years older. Older than the pyramids. Older than written language. Older than modern humans themselves. And the most shocking part? It was discovered in a black man living in America. So ask yourself, if Albert Perry's DNA is older than any known human lineage in the Americas, what are they hiding? History is not written by those who tell the truth. It's written by those who own the pen. And for over 400 years, the pen has never been in our hands. They told us our story began on slave ships. They told us we were rootless, voiceless, nameless. They told us we had no past, only pain. But what they never told us is that the truth was in our blood all along. From the moment the first Europeans set foot in the Americas, they began rewriting the past. They silenced the voices of the black indigenous tribes they encountered. They burned villages. They renamed rivers. They erased nations. Because if the world knew the truth, that black people were already here long before Columbus, then the entire system of conquest, colonization, and control would fall apart. So they replaced history with myth. They taught our children that we were nothing but former slaves. They told us our ancestors came from Africa with no civilization, no science, no sovereignty. They said we were discovered, as if we didn't already exist. But the truth has a funny way of surviving. It hides in places they can't reach, in songs, in stories, in stone carvings. And now, in science. For years, mainstream genetic studies avoided African American DNA. They studied European lineages, they studied Asian migrations, they traced the movements of Neanderthals and ancient Nordic tribes, but they rarely touched African Americans. Why? Because if they ever studied us deeply, if they ever cracked open the code of our DNA, they'd find something terrifying. Not just a connection to Africa, but to something even older. Something that didn't fit into their timeline. Something that couldn't be explained by slavery. They would find that we didn't just come from Africa, we came from the beginning. And in 2013, when scientists stumbled upon the DNA of Albert Perry, a man who had passed away in quiet obscurity, they weren't ready for what they found. They expected to see the usual ancestry breakdown. Instead, they found a genetic anomaly so ancient, so powerful, that it threatened to rewrite human history, starting with the Americas. And what did they do? They didn't announce it to the world. They didn't put it on the news. They didn't make it required reading in classrooms. They buried it, tucked away in scientific journals, labeled it an outlier, filed it under further research needed. But we're not outliers. We're not accidents. We're not invisible. We are the origin they've been trying to hide. And now the truth is rising. Albert Perry wasn't famous. He didn't write books. He didn't lead revolutions. He wasn't the subject of documentaries or celebrated by scholars. He lived a quiet life in South Carolina, in a world that told him his past began in slavery and ended in struggle. But what Albert Perry didn't know, what no one could have imagined, was that his body carried a secret older than civilization itself. It all began after his death. One of his relatives submitted a DNA sample to a commercial genetic testing company as part of a family tree project. The goal? To learn about their African roots, the usual migration stories, maybe some tribal connections, and the typical breakdown most African Americans get. But what the scientists found was something they couldn't explain. Albert Perry's Y-chromosome, the genetic strand passed from father to son, generation after generation, didn't match anything in their global database. Not a single known lineage. Not from Africa, not from Europe, not from Asia, not from anywhere. It wasn't just rare, it was unprecedented. His Y chromosome was so genetically distinct, so ancient, that it didn't even fall on the modern human family tree. It stood alone, like a towering monolith of forgotten history. How old was it? Over 338,000 years. That's older than the oldest known Homo sapiens fossils. Older than anything science had ever traced in the human genome. Older than the so-called Y-chromosomal Adam, the theoretical common ancestor of all living men. Let that sink in.